bombshell, Jayne Mansfield exploded into the 50s as one of the hottest sex symbols ever. But behind the dazzle of her smile lay heartache, desperation, and the mystery that lingers on even today, the horror of her bizarre and tragic death at 33. Shortly after midnight on July 28, 1967, a white Buick crashed with sickening finality into a trailer truck, cutting off the glittering life of one of Hollywood's hottest sex sirens. Mickey Hargitay, Jayne's ex-husband and father of their 3 children, remembers the night well.
I talked to her an hour before. She told me on the phone that we have just another hour, an hour and a half ride. It's late. I'm going to get the kids in the back seat and let them sleep. Three hours later, my phone rings. 5 minutes later, police is there. She's dead. Children in the hospital.
It was all over so quickly. Somewhere on the lonely stretch of highway between Mississippi and New Orleans, the gorgeous actress with the great big smile and the great big chest to match lay dead, decapitated in a car accident. Even today, some say it was the gruesome result of a black magic curse. Others believe Jayne's desperate bid for fame set her on a fatal path.
It's too darn hot.
It's September 1954, and small-town girl Jayne Mansfield hits Hollywood. Like all other hopefuls, she has dreams of making it big, really big. 2 years later, Jayne lands her first big movie role in the film A Girl Can't Help It, and it's all go from there, because the lady is hot. Too darn hot. Just like her screen image, Jayne was larger than life in more ways than one.
She loved to pose for pictures. She loved to be in front of the camera. She loved people. She loved to be on all the time.
But when it came to clothes, Jayne liked them off. Not just off the shoulder, but really off.
Jayne loved to take her bra off. Or she liked to bend over and show her breasts. She could upstage anyway, I mean, really.
Jayne even upstaged the legendary Mae West by stealing the heart of former Mr. Universe, Mickey Hargitay, a man Mae wanted for herself. Muscle-bound Mickey was the perfect partner for Jayne, but marrying one of Hollywood's best-looking hunks wasn't just another publicity stunt. Mickey and Jayne were in love.
I don't look at her as per se Jayne Mansfield. I looked at her as a person I love.
Mickey knew Jayne as a loving wife and mother, a big, beautiful doll who adored pink so much, he built her a pink palace, complete with a pink heart-shaped pool. But by the early 60s, there were signs of trouble in Jayne's pink paradise. Her life and marriage began to go bust. On one occasion, Jayne got so angry, she even announced their divorce. And no one was more surprised than Mickey.
I'm not saying exactly how long I contemplated divorce.
When did you reach the decision to file?
Yesterday.
That time there was a reconciliation, but it didn't last long, and the end of the marriage marked the start of a frightening journey for Jayne, a journey that sped her rapidly towards her doom.
Jayne felt that people were not laughing with her, they were laughing at her.
She was a joke, they said, a blonde bimbo who'd go to every supermarket opening on the block, but the crowds just weren't there anymore, and neither were the roles.
Jayne began living like there wasn't a tomorrow. And when the moment you live that way, you always know that someone is seeking death.
Well, I think Mickey, her husband, saw everything that was going to happen in the future for Jayne. And he tried desperately to make her realize, Jayne, it's going to end. You know, get ready for it, try. But there was no way of conveying this to her. She just could not realize it and didn't want to accept it.
she was breaking bonds and going into relationships that she would have never gone into earlier.
Perhaps one of those relationships is the one Jayne had with hotshot Beverly Hills attorney Sam Brody, who also died in the car accident on Highway 90. Carla LaVey doesn't blame the crash on reckless driving. She says Brody had been cursed by her father, famed in Hollywood as the leader of the Church of Satan.
Things had just become worse and worse with Sam Brody. And at one point, he'd come into my father's ritual chamber, and he touched various things that he had no business touching. And so after this had gone on for quite some time, my father said, well, this is it. You have a curse on you, and you're going to be dead within a year. So it was not a curse on Jayne Mansfield. It was a curse on Sam Brody. And it was just very unfortunate that Jayne Mansfield happened to be there at that time.
Whether or not it was the devil or bad driving, somehow Jayne always knew she'd die young.
We went to a cemetery in Pennsylvania where her father was buried. Her father died at the age of 34. I knew her only 2 weeks. She tells me, he said, as long as I'm going to live. And I said, yeah, how can you say that?
She thought she had to rely on glamour, on beauty, on youth. And she was so afraid that when it faded, it was over. And I think that even at the time she died, she'd already thought she was getting old. She wasn't, but she thought so. And I think that's why her life took very much of a very desperate downward spin, that she was losing the public who loved her.
Shortly before she left us, it was a very frightening period of her life. She was completely lost. And it was, she felt she don't have much. But she don't realize one thing, that she had herself. And when a person loses themselves, you know, you lose everything. And I tried to tell her that you have you. That is the most important thing. She always had me, she knew that. But it seems like at times it wasn't enough.
Jayne wanted real life to be a lot more like the movies. She wanted to star in a dazzling Technicolor dream. Perhaps that's why her public meant so much, because she'd spent so many years being the Jayne she thought they wanted. That's the Jayne we'll always remember. That's the Jayne who lives on.
So what's the mystery? I'm just a perfectly normal American girl.